Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Happy Halloween week. We're back. What's up? I always say we're back as if like that's a surprise. I don't know why I start videos like that, but hi. Welcome to Old Reader, New Reader. I am here with luscious Lee. Thank you, Lee, for joining me.
As always.
So Lee is our old reader today, and I am the new reader. I've been asking Lee for a walk, so with Halloween coming up, I was like, hey, wouldn't it be a good idea for you to like recommend some Hellboy verse books, Magnolia verse books, and we put that up on the Patreon to vote because my Hellboy knowledge is very limited. I've never seen the movies even. I know. Well, hey, you're
God
moving here.
damn.
We can watch them together.
With the commentary, yeah.
Gladly. I've only read, I think, like whatever the first Hellboy book is or whatever. Like, we did it once for Old Reader, New Reader. It didn't quite hit me. But what I've heard is like if I had read further, I would have more enjoyed it. But the portion that we read at the beginning, it didn't get me that much. And so I was like, well, I still want to know more about it, especially since you love it. And I'm like, I know it's there. If you like it, I know I will. And so Patreon voted BPRD 1946 through 1948, which I read the digital on Comixology for free. But that's like you have the physical, I assume. Yeah, there it is. That's nice. Like is that technically an omnibus?
Yeah. This is an Omni.
Okay.
So, there's a way to collect all the Magnolaverse books, and there's like 2 tracks you can take. One of them's like a combo of Omnis, trade paperbacks, and library editions, I think.
Yeah.
And I got all of mine from Faria way back in the day. She gave me her entire Magnolaverse collection for like a very, very good price, like where it normally would have been a couple $1,000s. I got every Magnolia book for
good
just
people.
a few $100s. Great, terrific.
Good people. Yeah, I'm glad Patreon voted for this actually.
Yeah,
because
I
really enjoyed it. Now we'll get into that. And again, I don't have Jaden. Thank you. She's my favorite. But yeah, I don't want to spoil my thoughts on it. And again, I have no knowledge of anything. But I thought this was super beginner friendly.
Mm-hmm.
Really.
Yeah.
Anyways, I would love for you to like lead into it if you would, because I think you'll have a better way to describe this than I will as like a completely new to BPRD completely person.
BPRD 1946 to 1948 is a prequel omnibus containing 3 separate arcs and a prologue set in the Hellboy universe, mostly around the adventures of Hellboy's father, Dr. Broom, whenever Hellboy was a little big kid, right after Hellboy came to Earth through the evil Nazi portal with Rasputin.
And he's very cute. Just want everybody at home to know.
He's adorable.
He's very cute.
Yeah. So these books are beginner friendly because it serves as an origin story to show you what a badass Hellboy's dad was once upon a time, because Hellboy's dad doesn't figure directly into most of the Hellboy books because of some events that happen in the books that I don't know if I should spoil this early in the show. So these 3 arcs are our best insight into what Hellboy's dad was like as a paranormal researcher, as a hero, and what he was like as Hellboy's dad, what his relationship with his kid was like, right? Most of the book revolves around vampires. Professor Broom and his soldier buddies fighting vampires. And then there's an arc at the very end that moves into like the horrors of the atomic age and like nuclear weapons opening rifts in space-time and letting monsters from other dimensions into the world. Right. And interspersed with that, there's a bunch of mini plots about like cute baby Hellboy being cute baby Hellboy. And there's a few arcs that I think are throwaway arcs about like things that happened to some of the soldiers that I didn't end up caring about towards the end. But that gives you like your 1,000-foot view of like the general trend that the story takes, right?
Yeah. I will say I was very invested in Anders, and I don't. Does that come back?
Really? I didn't care about Anders at all.
I like that whole setup in 1947.
Yeah.
I liked that whole setup, and I was waiting for it to pay off a little more. I kept confusing him with another soldier, but does that, because we don't get closure on that.
You are not done with Anders yet at the end of this Omni.
Okay, because I've been curious. I like that whole arc actually.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that arc circles back around, like a lot of the things in the Mignolaverse. Things that at first seem like they're small or throwaway or side things end up becoming important later on, and they loop back around and stuff like that. Yeah, you're not done with Anders, yeah.
Okay, that's good. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything with that.
Right.
I guess we can talk year by year.
We can.
Is that the best way to discuss this?
If we can.
Is there any background information I need to know?
No. There's no background. This basically starts you like right at the beginning, because in the prologue, excuse me, the BPRD doesn't exist yet, right? Whenever the prologue starts, it's just Broom investigating old churches and figuring out, a hat trick that will save him from the evil ghost, right? Setting the picture on fire, right? And then trying to find more information on his new ward, and moving on from there. So if you want to start in 46, 46 starts off with a bang, doesn't it? Let's see if I can figure out how to do this. If I can share for a moment.
You should be able to.
Yeah, I think I can. I'm not sure. Indeed, I can.
I also need more explanation about that little girl. Like, I get what she is, but is she a thing later too?
Yeah. So I can't share, but to answer your question, Vivara. This is your first introduction to Vivara, who becomes a major character through the rest of the BPRD, both in Plague of Frogs and in Hell on Earth.
Okay, I need to save a picture of her so I can show everybody, because she gave me definite, she reminds me a lot of Interview with a Vampire.
Yeah. Kirsten Dunst in Interview with a Vampire.
Yeah, let me upload this picture, because I upload the pictures you sent me as well.
Okay.
But this little girl right here is there throughout 1946, 47, 48, and she's always following the professor, aka Hellboy's dad. Yeah. And she is Russian at that. And she is
impersonating a Russian human.
Yeah. And she always dresses like that. She has a little doll, and she's just hanging around being creepy, and she's obviously like, an ancient old demonic force that decided to stay here and hang out with humans.
Yeah.
Love her.
Yeah,
big fan.
She's tremendous, right? So Vivara is a demon that originally came to Earth to claim the soul of Peter the Great, the old Russian emperor. And Vivara discovered that war and mankind's cruelty was so delightful that it was a better gig than being nobility in hell. So she sticks around here in a little child's body and becomes a minister of paranormal studies for Stalin. And that's
love her.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Terrific character.
Love her. Yeah. And she's always just drinking a ton, which is also great.
Yeah. So it's this little 4-year-old that's slamming vodka. And she's like, oh, yes, Dolly will interrogate Nazi soldier and tell us where magical artifacts are. And the terror with which the Nazi prisoners view her, whenever they're like, you're not taking me to see the child, are you? And then she's sitting there.
Nobody comes back.
It's a
and the professor's like, no, listen. And I love it because she's obviously way more powerful than him, but she finds him so interesting that the whole time the professor's like, quit it. Like, I can't handle your shit today. I'm not hanging out with you. Let me do things my way. Like, come on. Please, just this one. She's always just saying like, hey, what's up? It's like, oh my God, please. I like that. I like that relationship a lot.
It's a really good relationship from the start because he's so exasperated with her proclivity to violence. And she is sort of amused by his prudishness or squeamishness when it comes to violence, right?
Yeah, he's definitely the best person to hang around with because he's always getting into those situations and attracting those situations anyways.
Right.
Real quick, Ryan Wilson asked, never read this. Should you read Hellboy and BPRD before this?
No, you don't need to read Hellboy and BPRD before this. If you read this chronologically, it's not like recommended in that big Magnola-verse like breakdown of what order you should read in. It's not recommended to read this first. You can start your whole run with everything in the entire Hellboy universe with these.
Yeah, I didn't feel like I was missing anything by having not read really anything else. Actually, made me want to read more. So to me, that's if you read something that's like new friendly enough and it makes you want to read more, that's a success.
For sure. So Vivar and the professor are investigating missing paranormal artifacts in Berlin after the fall of the Third Reich. All right. And the professor has gotten this this like bottom of the barrel team of like dysfunctional soldiers to help him with this task, and they're almost being punished. Like them helping him out is their punishment for them like not being model soldiers, right? And each of these soldiers ends up getting like their own small character moments that pay off and their own distinct personalities, and you end up actually caring about each of them. And one of them that Maddie mentioned earlier, Anders, ends up having a big arc in the Magnolaverse as a whole because poor Anders, Anders lives the dream. Anders gets kidnapped by two evil vampire ladies and taken to their alternate like witch dimension.
I love that whole bit.
Yeah.
Like the setup for that when you get to 1947, because the professor sends these four soldiers overseas to investigate an incident that happened 200 years ago. And they're like, first of all, you're not giving us a lot to go on. This happened 200 years ago. There's not much we can do. Also, we kind of want to hang out the first night because we've been in war. We haven't had the opportunity to hang out abroad in Europe, not during war. So, like, let's hang out the first night. But Anders is like, no, he's really focused. Goes to the library, or so we think, and gets this woman's like, hey, like super flirting with him, laying on thick, like, oh, are you reading about this? Well, let me tell you this. I'll show you a place that's really interesting. Let me take you there. And goes on his own with this random woman to this like the state that I guess like a auditorium type of like wherever that opera was performed.
Yeah.
You take a boat over there. She immediately, upon stepping onto the castle, transforms into like this period dress from 200 years ago. Yeah, Baroque period. And everyone else is there. It's very like, if you've seen Anastasia, that's what I think about. Like you step in, all these like ghosts appear. And he's like, yeah, this is fine. I'm like, Anders. Anders. And yeah, gets captured by this woman and her sister, but also witnesses all these other, I guess, I assume to be eventually big players. He's like...
Jarescu, the main vampire with the long white hair, Jarescu becomes a huge ongoing villain in the rest of the Hellboy universe. You're seeing his humble beginnings here.
Which is great, because everyone just, like, beat the shit out of him. So he's witnessing this vampire that they've been looking for, and we learn that he's, like, nothing. They're like, yeah, this guy, he's a fucking new vampire. He's causing all this shit. We said we'd take a seat back, and he's just out here killing people, doing stuff, and then gets captured and missing. And I like that whole bit until they finally like get him back and do like an exorcism sort of deal, but not, and trap the 2 vampire ladies inside his heart because they can't actually get them out. It's like a ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
And I was very invested because I was like, okay, when are they going to break out? What's going to happen? Because right now it's just irritable.
All right, so here this also leads us into one of the best subplots in the Omni, which is Little Hellboy. Don't you hate the priest that they send to do an exorcism?
Yes.
Because he's mean to Little Hellboy.
Yeah.
So Professor Broom, to help Anders get over his vampiric addiction, possession, whatever's going on between him and whatever evil the vampire sisters put on him. Professor Broom brings in an old friend of his who's an exorcist to help exorcise him of these demons. And he's like, hey, would you like to see Hellboy? And the guy's like, no, I've seen enough evil in my lifetime. And then the guy
he's like I've seen demons before. No.
He goes on like a monologue about how it's like important to kill evil at the root or whatever. Like he wants the professor to pop a cap in Hellboy's ass. And
it was perfect,
like a
right?
Because catch out the window.
Yeah, because he's talking about Anders, but he's also not. So that whole time he's like, listen, I trapped these vampire ladies, but that's all I can do. They're going to come out eventually. Could be a year from now, could be 20 years from now, but you're going to have to deal with that. It's better just to go ahead and kill him. And he goes that long monologue, and he's talking about Anders, but he's also talking about Hellboy.
Yeah.
And that continues into like the 3rd book with like that other woman that we'll talk about, right? Who's also like, you're raising him, but to be what?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this little sweet baby boy who just wants to play baseball and catch? No. He's playing with a dog. Be nice.
Yeah. So for me, the best subplot in the book is Margaret, Archie, and Hellboy's friendship.
Mm-hmm.
So Margaret is the professor's secretary, who has been really hardened by the atrocities in World War II. Archie is some soldier on base that happens to be friendly to young Hellboy, who is, a little bit of an outcast. The soldiers who are hanging around Area 51 don't really want to play with the small demon kid that's running around like, hey, will you play catch with me? The soldiers kind of staying away from him. So Hellboy's entire world is Professor Broom, who's often so absorbed in his work that he doesn't have time for Hellboy. His dad's secretary, who is sort of detached in a school teacher type way of like a strict, like, this is how we should raise the kid. And then Archie, who's a bad influence on little Hellboy, right?
Is Archie the one that made the pancakes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Archie's the one who made him pancakes. Archie's the one that he swiped a pack of cigarettes off of whenever he's like a 4-year-old teenager. And then Archie is the one, which is the best part of the book, and it's the way the book ends. Archie is the one who laughs at him when he puts the hat on, and it makes Hellboy self-conscious about his horns for the first time. And the book closes on this heart-wrenching shot of just a heartbroken little Hellboy looking at himself in the mirror holding a hacksaw, and he's gonna saw his horns off for the first time.
It's so sad.
It hurts. It's.
He just wanted to dress up to go out with all of them. He's like, I guess I should dress up. He's like, yeah, maybe you should get Margaret to like get you a little suit or something. And he puts that little hat on, but it goes in between his horns. And he laughs. He runs away. I was like, oh no, this poor baby. Yeah, because like Hellboy's really not the focus, and the Strangeways at home is thinking about it. But like the bits that do show up do feel very meaningful. Mm-hmm. And it's a great background because you also feel for Hellboy that his father doesn't pay attention to him, but you also understand. Like when Hellboy shows up, he's like, hey, can we play catch? And his dad's like, listen, I'm literally trying to save Andrew's life right now. There's exorcist guy. It's very serious. No, I can't. So you understand both sides, but you feel so sad that like he's never going to have a normal life, which they talk about. It's like this kid doesn't want to be anything different. He just wants to be normal. He just wants to be here and be normal. He doesn't want to be treated specially. He just want to be a regular kid.
And that's why it's so
Maybe.
potent whenever Broom rejects the exorcist's advice. And actually, so after that, exorcist goes on his little like monologue where he's talking about how Anders should be put out of his misery and Hellboy should be put out of his misery. As the exorcist is leaving Area 51, Broom kind of looks around at everything that's going on. He like sits his books down and sets his glasses down, and he goes outside to play catch with Hellboy. So it's this little subtle family moment where it's like, no, fuck that. He doesn't have to be evil. He doesn't have to destroy the world. He's my kid.
Yeah.
Right. And all of that will inform the rest of the way Hellboy behaves for the rest of it. So there's a lot of Archie in Hellboy, that sort of crass, cigarette smoking, good old boy element that Hellboy has when he's an adult. And then there's that quiet, humble humanity to him, right? That even though he's this giant, all-powerful demon sent to destroy mankind, Hellboy just wants to have a beer and help people out, right?
Yeah.
And that's and learn this paranormal stuff so he can help people, and he really has that drive to help people. And you're seeing like where these things come from, and they're all given to you in these little nuggets that are like the B plot of the overarching story, which is about, Professor Broom and his crew hunting vampires. It's terrific.
I do want to showcase, because you sent me some of the pictures, we should showcase some of the art in this, which, I mean, if you're familiar with, Magnolaverse stuff, you'll know. You're going to be familiar with.
Yep.
I wish I should be doing it justice. It might be a little bit. Oh, it's bigger, but probably bigger for everybody else. Also, anytime I see Hecate, I'm always happy. That's why I mentioned that.
Yeah,
like, what a babe.
Hair and the scales and
what a babe she is.
Yeah, so what you're seeing here is all the witches who are summoning Hecate whenever they kidnap Anders.
We do need to talk about this in depth, because I thought it was so cool, where they go to investigate and they bring the soldiers with them, and they go into this facility, this Nazi facility, where they find out that there's been, it's asylum that was still fully kept. So unlike other facilities run by the Nazis that were like, people were let go, this one was still fully occupied, I guess, for lack of a better word. And they basically kept all of these people, like 100 or so more people in a room together for years, and it only took them out for experiments, and was turning them into vampires, but freezing them before they could fully turn. So there's like this basement just like full of these almost like things of liquid, almost like liquid, like cryo chambers.
Like Austin Powers style cryo chambers.
Yeah, or I always think like, Goku when he's in the thing. He's healing. So they're all in that. They're all like in this stasis. But when they get there, not like 100 of them are missing. Like there's a large number of them missing. And they're just existing in that building. But I loved going through there, because it was so scary, because I couldn't quite figure out as I was reading this. I don't know if that was a purpose, where I couldn't tell if like the soldiers that were actually seeing the vampires and shooting at them, or that they were going crazy and thinking that their comrades were the vampires. Because regardless, it did cause them to like harm their other soldiers. But I loved, because I didn't know what was going on. I can only imagine how much terrifying it was for that. But it was easy to get like put your feet in their shoes.
And even though it happens in a comic book, doesn't that have such a good horror movie feel to it?
Yeah.
Like them walking all slowly through the dark corridor, and there are shadows everywhere, and they're like, there's nothing here. And then the camera pans up, so you see that there's something waiting in the dark for them, right? And that's where the art in this series is so perfect. The art in
this would work as a horror movie very well, or even like I play the Dark Pictures anthology games every year.
Yeah.
And this reminds me of some of the things that they've done in that, where you doubt your own mind of whether that is actually what you're seeing, or are you actually seeing monsters, or is your brain tricking you? Which I love. Love that. And what a cool way to see vampires. I love that was like I mean, it's always fun to read like crazy Nazi plans. Not that Nazis are great. Obviously they're not. But like I'm a big Blood Rain fan, so I like this sort of like horror aspect because Hitler's whole plan was like, man, if I don't win, I'm just gonna release all these vampires into the world as a big like fu.
Will you hit him with the Nazi vampire killer stormtroopers picture that I sent you? Will you hit him with that real quick?
Yes, I will.
So,
one moment. Is it
there it is. It's one of my favorite panels in the whole thing because Nazi occultism is one of my favorite sub-themes within the sci-fi horror genre.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's such an avenue to do a couple of things. One, it knocks Nazis off a pedestal and makes them a little bit campy and seriously. Like, it doesn't respect Nazis for what they are. And then two, it's a really good, understandable way for writers to talk about the trauma and express those cultural atrocities that happened in a way that's digestible and not exactly hitting you over the head with a hammer, right?
Or that doesn't feel so realistic and
so realistic
hard to
that
deal
it's
with.
like gonzo, right? And it's like disrespectful to the people that these things actually happen to.
Absolutely. Like this is different, but I had a similar conversation with Kristen yesterday because we were reviewing Did You Hear What Eddie Gein Done, which is a nonfiction graphic novel. And I felt terrified and disgusted the whole time, which is very different than reading something that's like nail biter. Both are dealing with, killers that commit horrific crimes, who do horrific things, but one is fantastical and fantasy and something that is not real to me, right? Versus something that is very much real and did happen.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to stomach that. Not that it wasn't fantastic. It was fantastic, but it's not something I could read again and digest. And so I agree that like there's something about, exaggerating this and adding the fantasy and the occult that makes that you can deal with the historical significance of it and the trauma without it completely tearing you apart.
Yeah, 100%.
But I loved it. Again, I love Blood Rain. So anytime there's like Nazis and vampires and we get to kill them, I'm like, yes.
Yep.
Remake Blood Rain, please.
Yeah. So this is like the origin of why Hellboy ends up punching Nazis in comic books from the 2000s and stuff, right?
Love
But
it.
this is where those sort of bad guys come from. And I know it's a trope that's done to death now, but in my opinion, like Mignola does it better than anybody. The way they run with like the theme of Nazi occultism, right? Maybe the only franchise that gets close is Blood Rain or Indiana Jones, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not tired of it. Adding excuse in comic books or fictional media to punch Nazis is good. Also, any excuse to do that in real life is good. But yeah, no, I love that whole sub story. And I loved it because you also, along the way, as this is happening, and the professor's on his way here, right? You're also getting that story from Vivara. And she's talking as if it's not her, but it is.
Yeah.
Right? About her origin. And once you get there, you get to see how much she does control. Because she walks in there, and all those vampires are like, oh, okay. Immediately. Like, she just leads him right out. Like, no problem. She's like, I'm in charge here.
Mm-hmm.
This is my deal. And they, I love the bit too about when they go to look for the bodies of those other vampires, and they find this very just goofy, campy head in a jar, controlling like this like robot body, and controlling all of these like
monkeys,
monkeys and apes. I love that. That's so fun.
All right, the only trope that works better than Mignola and like Nazi occultism is Mignola and monkeys, right?
Yeah.
Anytime a greater ape shows up in a Mignola comic, shit's gonna be fun, right? Every time.
It's so goofy. And then DC's done the same thing. But I like it every time.
Yeah, Gorilla Grodd's one of the best DC villains.
I love Gorilla Grodd.
Yep.
So I was like, yes, this is a thing I understand absolutely. Of course. I'm glad that you used your mind to save your head, attach it to a mechanical body, and of course, a la Wild Wild West, of course, and control monkeys. I think that's great. What a great evil plan you had.
It works because it's so campy. Like, so what it turns out is like the great Nazi plan for how to destroy the Earth if Hitler is defeated is that this crazy Nazi head in a jar is going to use robot gorillas to launch a rocket full of vampires at the United States mainland. And Professor Broom and his ragtag group of soldiers have to stop the rocket from delivering the vampires to U.S. soil.
Wonderful. That's the kind of ridiculousness that I like.
Yeah.
Like, that he's got a gun line is classic. I laugh every time.
Yes. Yep. There will be a day where I get those 3 panels tattooed on me. For sure.
Yeah. I love this. I love goofy, fantastical, ridiculous scenarios like this. I think it's fun. Especially when you have a story that can be very serious and deal with some heavy themes. It's like, what if we had monkeys on a rocket with vampires? You're like, yeah, okay. That sounds great.
I know I just showed you like Nazis holding people down, injecting them with stuff. That was a lot for you to go through. So here's a monkey punching a guy in the face. It works in the comic book form. That entire ending sequence of that, the entire ending sequence of 1947 feels like a Three Stooges bit. I can hear it in my head, like the chimp that's running the controls, and it's freaking out because it's losing like the chip that makes it like intelligent and follow orders, and it's going back and forth between trying to figure out if it should like throw its own shit at something or continue operating the rocket. I can hear that in my head, right? And it plays out like a slapstick bit, and it has momentum in the same way that watching it in film would have momentum, right?
Yeah. Are we getting a BPRD show or something? Were we supposed to get something like that? Am I imagining things?
I haven't heard anything about this.
Well, we should. This would work really well.
It would work, yeah. In the new Hellboy, they play around a lot with some of the lesser-known members of the BPRD. The new Hellboy with David Arbor that a lot of people didn't like. I liked that one more than the critics did. So they play around with some of the lesser-known BPRD members in that one.
But yeah, I think it's hard for me to choose a favorite of the years, but I lean towards 1947, I think.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. 1948 has some interesting ideas in it that kind of get diluted because they want to shoehorn a reluctant, ill-fated romance into it.
Yeah, that's how I felt. Because I was interested, of course. I really liked her. I was interested in her deal. I liked them talking about the whole parallel universe things and those monsters and whether or not they're close to being human, how's it affecting everyone. But I think it was too much of like their thing that I think I did get in the way because I was really having fun with. Which wasn't
compelling enough to carry the book.
Because I was having more fun with like the adventures and the scenarios that we were in. That I didn't care about the scenarios that they were in this time because you were getting a lot of character moments, which is great. I'm so thankful for that. And also, I was waiting for the other shoe to drop with Anders, so I was like sitting there like, because he's having some stuff and like the door's opening in his soul or whatever. So I was like, where are we at? What am I focusing on right now?
Yeah.
Also, she didn't like Hellboy, so she's rude. She may be beautiful, but she wasn't a fan. But
He didn't even call her Dollface.
I know. Teenage Hellboy's pretty great.
He is.
But nice. I mean, I still enjoyed it. But I think 1947 was my favorite with everything that was going on there. I think it was the easiest to follow. There was a lot of like really fun action going on and like circumstances that it really stuck with me a lot more.
Yeah.
And also a lot of the great moments with like the professor and how he cared about these soldiers that were gone and like his own guilt, even though some of it's from Margaret being like, "Hey, don't do it." But the compassion that he has, you can see where like Hellboy gets it from, even though he's an absent father.
Yeah. Yeah. And see, this really comes into play in the future. When you get deeper into the Hellboy books and they start really fleshing out who Hellboy is as a character, it's often in ways that are like, whenever they found Abe Sapien, they were like doing experiments on him. They had him like locked in his tank and they didn't think he was like fully human and were doing experiments on him until like Hellboy went and like unlocked his tank and like took him to the cafeteria for coffee.
Oh.
Or Roger, the homunculus.
Yeah.
Hellboy names Roger and like is helping him learn how to be alive.
Yeah.
Whenever everyone else around him wants to either use Roger for experiments to learn how he works or destroy him entirely because he could be evil, Hellboy is giving second chances to monsters that otherwise should have been destroyed because that's what he was taught. He was taught that nothing has to be evil just because it's supposed to be.
Oh, I want to read more now. Success. You did it. I want to read more. Did either of you see those Blood Rain movies? No, actually.
No.
So even though I'm a huge fan, everything I read about and heard about it, I was too scared to because I was such a huge fan that at the time that they came out, I was very pretentious. I think I'm less so now. I would watch it, but at the time I was like, no way. This isn't my Blood Rain. I'm not going to watch this. Same pretension level I was at with the Silent Hill movies, though I did watch them angrily.
They looked a lot like the Underworld movies. I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg with that one. But
I think Underworld came first.
But like it looked very similar. The only Blood Rain I've ever played is the 2D cartoon side scroller.
Really?
I never played any of the others.
Well, see, I don't know
my mom was not gonna buy me or rent me a game at Blockbuster with a naked woman on the front of it.
I don't know how I got away with it. My dad rented it. I remember that. And I'm sure they don't hold up.
See.
I'm sure because of the graphics, but I loved the first one a lot because you're underground and you're fighting Nazis and you get to like run around and suck their blood. And I was like, yeah,
that's dope.
Somehow that was like, yep, this checks off all my boxes. Strong female character, kills people. Let's do it. And I just wanted that. I didn't want her to be like, I don't know, in Transylvania doing stuff. I'm like, no, you only exist to kill Nazis. That's what I wanted. Because it was so creepy at the age I was playing it, which was too young. Thank you, divorced parents. Yeah, I'm not sure what else we could talk about here. I love the art.
Yeah, so at the top of the show, one of the things I said was I'm glad they voted on this one for a couple reasons. One of the reasons of which is, and you and I have talked about this before, the point has been belabored to death, so I won't stay on it too long. Scott Alley didn't write any of these. He did a foreword at the beginning of the Omni, and then the rest of it, he didn't really have a hand in any of those other than being the publisher at Dark Horse. And I've been pretty conflicted about all the Hellboy stuff. I've got half the books on my damn shelf have the dude's name.
Yeah.
Right. And he had a heavy hand in writing and directing the overall plot lines. And one of the reasons I was like, yeah, let's read this one is because he's not in it. And, understanding that like the complicated nuances that come like that. But yeah,
right.
I was excited for that reason because I always feel a little bit icky when I go back and do my Hellboy reread and I see his name on them. I always feel like
Yeah.
I'm a little bit weird with it.
Yeah.
So I was happy. I was happy that that this one got picked. I was also happy that this one got picked because it is a storytelling format that works best within the Magnolaverse. The Magnolaverse is at its best when it is not something like Hell on Earth or Plague of Frogs, which is an arc that covers like 4 to 5 omnis at a time.
Yeah.
The entire Magnolaverse is at its best when it's the short, like sometimes one-offs. The Hellboy short stories and weird tales are some of the
Yeah.
best that character ever gets, and that's why almost everything I gave you was a Hellboy short story collection or something
I
like
like it. It feels very
46
Monster
to
of the
48.
Week,
Yes.
which is a format I very much like
Yeah.
in these kind of stories. You know, same with like, you know, early Supernatural. And I do mean early, first 5 seasons. I'm not talking about the rest of it. I like that kind of format with these stories.
Sure.
It's easy to follow and it's fun. It gives you a time for fun and still have the, you know, the, like you said, the side stories that have more of the character development. It keeps you reading, keeps you excited. I like it.
Yeah, I'm a much bigger fan of those parts of the Magnolaverse overall than I am of the places where they get like really deep. Like for me, Hell on Earth is sometimes hard to get through because it's just 5 books of them fighting monsters because the world's ending, and like there's
Yeah.
so little plot movement over time. And this, the pacing is so quick and so fast, and that even within that quick pacing, you still get these little character moment nuggets that are like, they hit even harder for how fleeting they are, right? The Hellboy,
Yeah.
the baby Hellboy subplot is so good because you get so little of it. It's just little hints of it here and there that you want more, but that's actually exactly the right amount. The amount that makes you want more is like the exact right level of pacing that they do.
Yeah, this is the perfect format to hook me.
Yeah, big fan of it.
And this was great. I liked that it was segmented by year. It was very easy for me to get. It was very easy for me to follow. The length of the adventures are very easy for me to follow. Perfect. Perfect for this little ADHD brain as a new reader. I'm like, okay, now I get Hellboy. Now I'm interested because I've got the background. So now I want to read more because when I first read Hellboy, it didn't get me. And I wanted it to because on paper, that's a character that like would work for me. You know what I like.
It takes them a lot of
Monster
hit
Men.
Yeah.
I like curmudgeoned monster men, of course. So on paper, that's it.
I mean, what you have to do is you have to power with it until you get to the arcs with Liz, because Liz Sherman will be one of your favorite comic book characters and everything. If you just power through until you get to Liz. No, so that's the thing that the Hellboy movie did. The Hellboy movie put Liz and Hellboy together. In the comics, Hellboy does have a girlfriend, but it's not Liz. He and Liz are just friends.
Yeah.
Where in the movies, the Guillermo del Toro movies, actually, it's one of the best like Beauty and the Beast style romances on screen.
I love that.
They do that subplot so well, but that's actually something those movies inserted. That's not in the comics.
Yeah.
Hellboy's girlfriend's name is Alice in the comics.
Aw, thank you so much. I love hair compliments. But yeah, so I guess we can get to the rating and then chill with the chat.
Sure, let's do it.
It's hard for me to choose one rating because I feel like each year is so separate.
All right.
But if I'm going to give a rating as a whole, my heart says 7.
Okay.
That being said, I would give 1947 a higher rating than the other two. But I'm still glad to read them all together because I think that's very important. And I was very much still very interested and inspired to read more after this, which is a big, I mean, rating regardless. The fact that I want to read more after this, I'm very interested, speaks more highly of like the what I think, you know, objectively the book should be.
Sure. So I'm reading it for one of the first times on the show, I think this might be my first time as the old reader.
Yeah.
I'm reading it from the context of the old reader, having read everything in the Mignola verse
Yeah.
at least once, most of it more than once. So I'm reading it with this context of like, where do these things pay off later, and how does knowing those events in the future, how does that color my perception of this book, and how do I see things that come back around, and what do I think about how those things began? So for me, it's a 9 out of 10.
Okay, that makes me excited to read more.
Yeah, just for art, just for the small jokes, just for the small heartwarming or heartbreaking character moments, and then for just how things are getting kickstarted, which they're not really getting kickstarted, right? Because this stuff was written after they had the entire plot arc of the whole thing planned out, I guess.
Yeah.
So they know what they're doing here, and the seeds make sense, but it's good shit.
Good job. So chat. We have our ratings now. It's time to chill. What's up? What are you reading? Or actually, a question for Lee from me. Where, for those who liked this, including myself, what do I go? What do I do next? What do I read next? Do I start at the beginning again, or do I not?
All right. After you've read this, the next thing I would recommend that's got a similar format is the 1950 Omni that just came out. There's more to the 50s than just this. I think they go to 57 in the trade paperbacks, but this is all they've gotten hard copy yet. That would be my recommendation. If you haven't read Hellboy Weird Tales, that's just a little short story collection. Very short, very fun. Has my favorite Hellboy story of all time. He's on a stakeout with like a hot lady, and Hellboy wants to find the monster, right? He's on the stakeout to find the monster, and this lady is like more interested in her stakeout companion than she is in
I would be too.
The chemistry is really good in that one. I think the art is actually done with colored pencils, so it has a very like James O'Barr old school style to it. Yeah, I like that one a lot. But so Weird Tales and then the 1950s Omni, I would recommend for sure.
Okay. Interesting question. I wonder, Maddie, do you think an anklet is a good gift for a 37-year-old female conservative cousin? Yeah. Ladies love anklets.
Do they?
I mean, jewelry's easy. I will say, because it's cold right now, an anklet would not be as good as a bracelet. But any jewelry, I think a lot of women will be like, oh, that's really sweet and personable. Like, most women would be like, oh, that's good. Because I'm bad at buying jewelry for myself. So if someone gives me jewelry, that's special. That's just me. But, for me, I'd be like, a book.
Yeah.
A book would be great.
I always give gift cards and books for sure.
Yeah.
Or here's a little secret for you, my man. What I like to do is you'll see some of this shitty finger paintings behind me. I make shitty art for my friends. I paint shitty things for them, and then I give it to them. And then later on, whenever I'm visiting, I'm like, "Hey, did you put that thing I made for you with my fucking hands? Did you put it in a place of prominence in your home?"
I did. Now listen, don't look
Maddie
at my house.
because she's a good friend.
But and my whole room is a mess. That's why I haven't done the video. But it's right there.
That's my wedding gift.
That's above my fireplace, Lee.
It is. That is on her mantle, people.
That's on my mantle because it's from you, and that's special.
So that's a tip. People often like things that you'll make for them with your hands. And if you're bad at making stuff with your hands like I am, it gives you a little kick whenever you go visit them.
Wow. So you're just like, I'll take it.
Everything I do is hedonistic. I'm always chasing the next thrill, Maddie.
You and Elliot, once you move here, it's over. It's just going to be back and forth. Strange Tales has the chained coffin, right? Top dollar story here.
Ooh, I think the chained coffin is in the Hellboy short story collection, which there are 2 short story omnis, or those short stories are included in the Big Velvet library editions. I don't think the chained coffin is in Weird Tales. I might be wrong on that because I don't have all this stuff memorized off the top of my head. But you are right. That is a top dollar story. And that is where Hellboy with the zombie on his back talking to him and telling him where to go. That's where that one comes from.
Oh, that's fun. So while people are thinking about questions and stuff, it's October. It's spooky book season. Do you have any spooky graphic novel recommendations for the chat?
You will always, always, always hear me recommend Upgrade Soul, like it's my job.
My man! We're Ezra Clayton Daniels' biggest fans, and now we're going to have to watch all of Doom Patrol because he wrote a script for an episode in season 4. So
he also wrote part of the anthology for Horror Noir, the new all-black creator horror anthology on Shudder. Out of this world. It's also got some stuff by Tanner Reeve too. It's gonna be great. The next one would be These Savage Shores. I will also shill for These Savage Shores, like it is my job by Ram V. Amazing.
Anything by Ram V, honestly.
And then the last one, and this one hits very close to my heart, and it hurts me that I don't have the full Omni collection, is Harrow County. As far as spooky stuff goes, Harrow County is the best sort of horror light spooky comic run that's out there. It's just terrific. It gets Appalachian folklore just right. It gets the people who live there just right. The art is absolutely incredible. The storytelling and pacing is great. It has a very old Gods of Appalachia style feel. If y'all like that podcast, it's got a very similar vibe, except it mixes a little bit of like Ellie Mae bubblegum and sugar optimism into that sort of vibe as well. Love Harold.
Yeah, absolutely. You and I are definitely always down for any like horror Appalachian or horror Southern charm, like. Anything Cullen Bunn really is just like, I'm just there. I'm like, oh, because he writes Southern dialogue. So like exact. It's so spot on. And I'm like, yes, this is it. You understand our people. And also you have a reverence for that too, as you know, because some people think of Southern as one-sided and dumb. But I think those stories have a much more dynamic approach. Real character approach to them. Yeah, which is important. Anybody like Dark Horse Book of Horror? It has the artist of Hellboy doing it. I haven't read that.
Which one? Like Gabriel Ba, Dave Stewart? Who are you talking about? Mignola himself? Because that would be my jam. I don't know about that one off the top of my head. That's what I need to look up.
Will she think, why is my younger male cousin getting me jewels for my feet? Intimate? Maybe. I think it's still very sweet. I think as long as it's a genuine gift, I think it's very sweet.
Depends on the jewelry, right? If it's something that's like classy and elegant, then yeah. If it's like a little bracelet that says like daddy and pink hearts, I don't think that's going to go down too well, my man.
No, but I think it's a good gift. Although, you can always fall back on a book. Or flowers. Flowers are easy and cheaper.
Food, man. Everybody loves food.
Lee, with the X-Files poster and painting, what is your favorite TV series / movie or books that deal with aliens?
The absolute best book that deals with aliens is They Are Already Here by Sarah Scholes. It is a scientific, skeptical view of the UFO and abduction story phenomenon. So Sarah Scholes don't believe a word of this. And she breaks all these things down and how they're informed by things like shared hallucinations or shared belief systems, how they're informed by emotion and instinct and fear, how they reflect the current national security political climate of the United States. So a really good series of articles by a guy named Kelsey Atherton about how UFO stuff really tells us a lot more about the United States national security aerospace industry than it does about whether they're aliens from another world. Now, all that shit said, My favorite movie about aliens is a flick called Fire in the Sky. I love that one. Um, the alien abduction scene in that movie is just top tier special effects, and it will make you wet your bed. My favorite fiction TV show that deals with aliens would be probably the second season of American Horror Story. I think they did aliens really well in that season. And then the last thing I'll mention is Mass Effect. Mass Effect does aliens better than any other franchise out there.
A little tidbit: Lee and I went to the same graduate school, and we wrote
Yeah.
a little essay, I guess you call it, about diplomacy in Mass Effect.
Yeah.
Which is a great catch there.
This may be a gross self-plug, but I also recently wrote an article about what the U.S. government's plan should be if we meet aliens. It's called The National Security Implications of First Contact. If anybody wants to read that
cool, Lee, you're so cool. Also, before we're done, please plug your podcast, but we can save it real quick. Nomales, oh my god, I'm so glad you're here. Where have you been? The Jules for Fee was not a BPRD story, but I just wanted to shout out and say hi to you. Cam recommends iZombie. I still haven't read it. I've watched the show.
It has Daddy Sheriff from Midnight Mass in it before
my
he was
man
Daddy
Rahul.
Sheriff. Yeah.
I've
Midnight
been in love
Mass
with
is
him
a tremendous Halloween watch for anybody who hasn't watched Midnight Mass yet, especially if you grew up Catholic.
Yeah, which I did. So most horror movies are made for me, really. I think of Justify when you say Southern. Does everyone in Tennessee not run around with guns, drugs, and hats? I mean, from the small town in Kentucky I came from, also the setting, it's the beginning of Walking Dead. By the way.
Yeah.
Cynthiana, Kentucky. I lived across from that hospital where Walking Dead starts. That seems pretty accurate, yeah.
Fun fact about Justified. Justified is set in my wife's hometown, Hazard County, Kentucky.
I didn't realize it's set in Hazard County.
They could not film there. Well, they could have, but they would have just been filming trees and the occasional gas station.
Yeah.
There's nothing there. They filmed a lot of their shots in Elizabethtown, Kentucky, which is where boy's from.
I used to live in Elizabethtown too.
Yeah. So.
Also, there's a movie shot there. Orlando Bloom and
of course
Kirsten Dunst. Elizabethtown.
Now that said, Justified does a really bad job of representing what the people from Kentucky are actually like.
Yeah, it's pretty chill here. With your you have your typical issues. But
another fun TV show movie about aliens that is related to Kentucky is the mockumentary docu-series Hellier on Amazon Prime. It's about a bunch of paranormal investigators from Cincinnati looking into the Eastern Kentucky goblins experience, where like a bunch of farmers and doctors who live in Eastern Kentucky claim to have seen and been attacked by goblins on their property. Now, all right, so the things I just said are pretty strange. I want to tell you that this TV show Hellier, it gets weird after the goblins. The goblins are the most normal thing that happened in the course of that show. It's a good one.
I love that. Have you all read any of the Shadow or Doc Savage books? I have not.
No, I haven't read any of them. Are they spooky? Curious. Are they worth getting into?
I care if they're spooky. American Horror Story is telling another alien story this season. Yeah, I've seen that, but I haven't started yet. Double feature.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's cool.
I might wait till the season's done, because I think American Horror Story for me is better if I binge it. Even though I will inevitably just be disappointed on the second half of the season.
Of course.
But the first half is always really good.
I'm willing to bet if I rewatch season 2 now, I would hate it. But I remember it being good whenever I was in college.
Oh, I remember still loving season 1 the most. And then nothing ever really meeting that for me.
Nicole really loves the witch season for understandable reasons.
I mean, style-wise, the witch season's the best. There are aliens in American Horror Story. I only watched the first season about a haunted house, if I remember well. American Horror Story deals with like everything.
Yeah, every season's a different,
Inevitably.
horror setting. None of them really pay off very well. If you're interested in something that will entertain you but not be especially good, you can watch it. If you're a horror fan, then you know what I'm talking about when I say that a movie doesn't have to be good or a TV show doesn't have to be good for you to enjoy it and get something out of it.
Oh yeah.
Because if you're a horror fan, you got to get really used to watching stuff that's like not good.
I've watched all of the Saw movies
Sure.
religiously.
The Paranormal Activities. Yeah.
Oh, all the Paranormal Activities. And speaking of reality shows, I'm a huge Ghost Adventures fan, as Lee knows.
Yes, 100%. Same.
Bacon's Bitch for Life.
I don't think I'm allowed to say his name because we rag on him in my other podcast, and I think he sues people for ragging on him, so I don't think I'm allowed to say his name.
Okay, well, Zach Bagans, I love you.
I love my Breaking Benjamin roadie clown boy.
It's just silly because the whole time it's like, oh, dude, I felt something, and Zach Bagans runs. He's like, I felt it too. Oh man, and he flexes.
Maddie, I got a master's degree and followed my dreams, and I could have just shrieked in dark warehouses at night while looking at a Game Boy Advance on camera.
You and me both.
Made millions.
We have the same degree. Look where we are now. Just kidding. You're way more successful than me.
I don't think I am at all.
I think you are.
If you all knew Maddie's job title, you wouldn't think this either.
Yeah, but I can't tell you because it's a secret. I don't know you guys. Do you like the Resident Alien show? I've been dying to watch it because I know there's a comic as well.
Is that what's his name?
Is it Alan
the voice
Tudyk?
actor guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I met Alan Tudyk, by the way.
Oh.
In Louisville, Kentucky. I also met the entire Walking Dead cast there.
Oh, I think I may have one up on you. I'll ask here in a minute.
Okay.
The chat.
Have you read Girl Squad's 20 Female Friendships That Change History by Sam Maggs? I haven't yet, but I love Sam Maggs. So I'll read anything.
Okay. Try that one out.
Scotty G, you sent me a care package. I love Halloween and care packages. Thank you. I'll be there Friday. Thank you, Scotty G. Oh, man. I got to go to Elmer's house on Friday to go get it. Thank you. Actually, he's come over to my house for a party, so he can bring all my stuff. Scotty G, you're the best. I'd still love you if you didn't do that, but I still love you anyways. I didn't understand the X-Files in the 90s when I was younger, but I love it now.
It is way better today than it was when it came out.
Yeah, I'd like to go back and watch it. I mean, I feel the same way about I feel the same way about Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
Twin Peaks hits all the right buttons for me now. So does Deadly Premonition, which is, I don't know what this is about my taste. Oh, really? Okay, so Deadly Premonition is a video game where basically it's Twin Peaks.
Okay.
The controls are garbage. No. Alan Wake is a more polished one, but if you wanted like a one that you could definitely make fun of but still enjoy, it's Deadly Premonition. I'll send you a trailer. You'll see what I'm talking about.
All right.
Because you're investigating something in town, but there's definitely something kind of weird happening. And the cop is very dorky. Like, very Twin Peaks dorky.
This leads to a good one. What are the best... What are some of the spooky plays you would recommend to people? Spooky games.
Oh, man, I have a ton because I'm a big horror game.
We know the dark picture games. I haven't played the one that came out. It came out last week, right? The newest one series.
I downloaded it. I downloaded day one. You're welcome to come over and play with me.
I haven't downloaded that one yet. I've played all the others. Those are all amazing.
Just come over and play with me. I'll play it again.
I adore Larry Fessenden, who's the independent filmmaker who writes and produces all those. He's one of my favorite filmmakers.
I love them. I think they're so much fun. Yeah, I definitely recommend all of Dark Pictures anthologies because they're they've started a new trend where they come out with one every year. There'll be some famous actors in there. It's mocap, and it's kind of a choose your own adventure game, but you and a bunch of friends can play together with each person playing a different character. It's inspired by Until Dawn because people are already playing Until Dawn like that, which is a fantastic game if you like cabin in the woods type
some creative
horror movies. Also has Rami Malek in it, which is great. I'm a huge Silent Hill fan forever.
I've never played a single Silent Hill game.
You're moving here, you come over, we'll play them. I will gladly play them. Silent Hill 1
I know
through
that
3.
somewhere there's also Maddie's self-insert fanfic of Silent Hill.
I did write a self-insert fan fiction for Silent Hill. And honestly, it's probably not hard to find because I think I used my own name. I literally think I named her Madeline. I think I did.
Tremendous.
Frodo's 14. But because the controls aren't great, and because unlike later Resident Evil games, you can't just depend on like your fighting and your action and like your how much ammo you have. It's very spooky. So there's a lot of like that psychological thriller, and there's like there's a great lore in Silent Hill. And besides that, so don't take up too much time because I could talk forever. Fatal Frame 2.
Okay.
Because that one, you don't fight anything. There's just ghosts, and all you have is a camera. And that's how you exercise ghosts, and it's terrifying. And if you like Japanese, like, ghost horror,
sure,
then Fatal Frame 2 is it. And those are still all available if you have like a PS3 and stuff. Like you can go to PlayStation Store to play. That's my quick and dirty, but I like a bunch of stuff.
The one I will add to that is Alien Isolation.
If I wasn't such a big baby, I could play that game.
That game is
the biggest
stressful
baby.
And upsetting. There's an alien hunting you throughout the game, and you have to like solve puzzles and find things and like fix things on the space station while the alien's hunting you. And the alien is a one-hit kill, and it has advanced AI where it can hunt you. So it's extremely stressful game.
I've watched friends play it, and it's
upsetting.
That's above my level of what I can play.
Okay.
I can enjoy them, but I get too scared. I will pause it and run out of the room. So I have to play that stuff with friends.
When she catches me playing it, like if she's like, "You're playing that with me in the house," is what I get.
It could get me at any time, Lee. You can play it with me. I'll just watch. It's easier that way. Maddie's job is undercover Ace Ventura. A guy I graduated high school with is a Ace Ventura
impersonator. Oh shit! Like he does like thing at like kids' birthday parties and shit.
No, he goes to conventions and stuff. He does Jim Carrey impersonations.
Has he met Jim Carrey and done it for him?
I don't think so. No.
I imagine that's wildly insulting.
He hangs out with the guy who's like Earl Jr. or whatever. I'll just send you the stuff sometime. I started X-Files on Disney Plus, got halfway in season 1, then forgot about it. It was good though. Luckily, that's something you always come back to. Yeah. It's a great background show. Maddie, do you know how much you look like Elizabeth Moss? I know I'm not the only one. I've never heard that. Actually, I get Anne Hathaway a lot, which I always thought was weird. I don't think I give an Anne Hathaway vibe off, but X-Files is great. Love everything except for the final season. Season 11 is bad. That's fair.
That final season.
Did you like all the Hellboy movies, Lee?
So Hellboy 2 is the single best film ever made, and the scene where Hellboy and Abe are drunk and singing about how much they love their girlfriends is the best scene that's ever been.
That sounds so cute.
It's so good, Maddie.
I'll watch it now.
That said, I like every single one of the Hellboy movies. I think the second one's the best, followed closely by the first. The one that came out a couple of years ago with Ian McShane and David Harbour, I didn't hate that one as much as the critics did or as much as the fans did. Some of the creative choices were a little bit strange to me, but it's still it's Hellboy, it's recognizable, and it's fun. So I enjoy it. I also really love the two cartoons they did, Sword of Storms and Blood and Iron. One of them is like Hellboy hunting Elizabeth Bathory's ghost, and the other one is actually Hellboy wandering a Japanese fantasy landscape that he's been transported to, and he deals with like the kappa and kitsunes, and what are the heads that bite people? What are those?
I know what you're talking about, but I
The
couldn't.
floating head ghosts.
Yeah.
He basically fights a bunch of monsters from Japanese folklore. It's good shit.
I love anything with Kappa in them.
The spider lady who plays a lute and then traps people in her silk. I know she's a famous.
Yeah. Oh man, one day I need to show you. There's a manga. It's like a long running manga. There's an animated show. There's a live action show called Gegege no Kitaro.
Okay.
It's really big in Japan, but it's like a kids, kids level kind of content. But it does a great job of showing you all like the Japanese like folklore and like monsters and stuff. It's very fun. Nomal says X-Files is the best series of all time. Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Disney Plus can join their force to beat that, but that will never happen. Oh, your English is great, Nomal Liz. I'm just excited to see you. I always see you on Instagram. The first time I played Silent Hill, I was stuck on the rooftops running in circles from the giant moth because I didn't understand ammo conservation yet.
My man was popping off at everything that moves.
Bless your heart. That's rough. I remember that movie gave me like a complex against butterflies and moths in video games. Like if they show up, I'm like, it's evil. That combined with
So how did you
Fatal
play
Frame
Until
2?
Dawn?
It's fine. I'm tough now. I'll play Until Dawn any day. That's such a good game. The Silent Hill movie was really good. I think it was technically good. I will say it's good. I will say as a hardcore Silent Hill fan, I complained a lot when I first saw it.
Is that the one with Ned Stark in it?
Yeah. So basically it's the plot of Silent Hill 1, but you're a woman instead of a man. Because originally you're a single dad. I think because they like to showcase women in like as horror heroines, yeah. which is fine. But there's a character in there that should not be in there that is the subconscious of a character in another game. And again, High School Mag is very pretentious. So the whole time I was like, no, no. That wouldn't happen. Also, none of the cult members are alive or there. Maybe in the prequel and Silent Hill Origins they would be, but not in the movie. Pyramid Head should not have been in that movie. And I would tell you why, but it would spoil everything, so I can't. But Lee, after we play the game together, come over. It'll only take me 4 hours to play the game, Silent 2. And then I will give you my dissertation on the Silent Hill storyline and what each monster is what it symbolizes. Like the door enemy in Silent Hill 2 is actually Angela's dad. And the apartment in Silent Hill 4 is a womb.
We got to get you on Luckily Cryptids. I'll give you 2 hours to talk about this.
Here's the time now. Lee, talk about your podcast you just started. Sure. I should have put it in the description. I did not think to do that, but please.
We can add it later. So a good friend of mine named Loki, who is a Twitch streamer. You can find Loki at Desert Trash Opossum on Twitch. Loki and I both have a shared interest in cryptids, and we decided to start a podcast together. It's called Luckily Cryptids and Critters. Luckily, Cryptids and Critters. Right now, we have no resources. We've got one explanatory episode where we just explain what the podcast is going to be. And right now, you can only really get it through RSS feed because we haven't paid for the Acast feature yet where it'll publish it on Spotify and everything. We're going to do that once I get moved and set up and everything and finances stabilize a little bit. And then people can actually access the show and read it. And then at that time, there'll be like a backlog of things they can listen to. There'll actually be content. So the show is called Luckily Cryptids and Critters. My friend Loki and I look at monster stories from an anthropological, historical, and pop culture point of view. So we take like a famous ghost story or a famous myth, like say Bigfoot, and we look at like, okay, what is the history of belief in Bigfoot? Where does that belief come from? How has that belief changed over time? What does believing in Bigfoot do for a society? And then what are some of the best depictions of Bigfoot in pop culture? That's an example of like the type of stuff we would talk about. Our first episode that's about a topic. We just recorded it on Sunday. It's about La Llorona. Our next episode that we'll be recording at the end of the week is my episode. It's going to be on Appalachian voices. So people who hear voices in the woods or in caves in Appalachia and that phenomenon. So the way the podcast works is 1 week Loki will research a cryptid from Mesoamerican or Scandinavian folklore, and I will interview Loki about this topic and add color commentary and jokes and ask clarifying questions. And the next time I will look up a cryptid from Appalachia or from Slavic folklore. And Loki will not, and Loki will interview me about that subject. And the reason it works out like that is Loki has an academic background in Scandinavian religion and archaeology, and I have an academic background in Russian religious history, in addition to being from Appalachia, and Loki has Mesoamerican heritage. That's why
So cool.
Those 4 topics in particular.
And I could listen to you talk about anything, so I think that's great. And also,
Thank you.
Somewhere down the line, if you need anybody to talk about any Japanese creatures,
Yeah. So
because I can give you culture context.
100%. Because that's one of the things we specifically want to talk about is like, okay, how do the cultures around these things change and what's made up by white people? Like, for instance, like Native American burial grounds. How much of that is legitimate Native American folklore, and how much of it is stuff white people made up to make it sound mystical? It's a thing we've talked, and I know a lot of Japanese stuff is going to have that element too. But how much of it is white American teenagers taking things that they maybe read about online and changing it and then entering the popular mind that way? We would be, of course, delighted to have you on whenever. The way that podcast started is like, I love to talk about that shit, and I don't have a forum to talk about that shit. Like, if I walked up to a person at a party and was like, hey, did you know Mothman is actually a representation of economic anxieties of out-of-work coal miners in Western Virginia? You'd be like, will you get the fuck away from me?
I mean, most people, if you're at our house, you'd be like, and? Just come over anytime. Ellie and I'll sit there like, no shit.
See, normies don't like that, Maddie. They don't like it when I do that.
Hey, the teens are into cryptids now, okay? Listen, all the girls are into Mothman.
Yeah.
That's true. My recent mass campaign, which is that superhero, like D&D, teen superheroes. My character originally was just super strength, but later on I chose the transformed playbook, which means it's like a Beast Boy type or anything that, you physically transform your body. For mine, I decided that she, depending on her emotion, she transformed into different cryptids.
Ooh.
And it was very fun. I mean, gross stuff too. Nothing attractive, but basically like her lineage of where she came from. And it was all like Mexican cryptids and things like that. It was very fun.
That's good shit.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be about 9:20. We've killed it. It's been a while since I've stayed on podcast or not podcast.
My bad.
Video. No, I love hanging out with you, and then I get to see you in person more. I'm so excited. We can do videos together in person.
You'll get my physical comedy in person.
So excited. So we will be back, I think, next week. I haven't decided I want to take off a month this year. And maybe just post some videos instead. But I haven't decided I'm going to do that in November or December. I'm trying to figure that out first. But I will make sure there's at least some content from me. I'll keep you all up to date on the Facebook page. But anyways, thank you all for hanging out today. It's been a really fun video and just fun chatting with the chat. I definitely want to read more Hellboy. If you're catching this later, I hope you like this video. Comment down below what you thought about Hellboy or any of our questions or topics we talked about. And I will try to remember later tonight or tomorrow to add Lee's podcast description in the description. But Lee, if you can comment at least later the name, that'd be great. Yeah, I hope you subscribe. I hope you join our Patreon so you can vote for our Patreon pick of the month for All Your New Reader. We will see you all soon. Hopefully sooner than later. And I hope you all have a good night and stay healthy. Good night, guys.